At 3:47 in the morning, my phone vibrated against the wooden shelf where I kept my soldering iron. Not my regular phone, the other one. The prepaid device my son Owen had pressed into my hand last Thanksgiving. His voice low and urgent even then. Just in case, Dad. Keep it hidden. Keep it charged. I had thought he was being paranoid. Owen worked for the NSA. Spent his days swimming through oceans of data, hunting ghosts in the digital dark. He saw threats everywhere. I humored him. Tucked the phone behind a row of glass cutting tools in my attic studio, and forgot about it. Until now. My hands found it in the darkness, fingers fumbling over familiar shapes. Pliers. Lead came. Flux brush. Then the smooth rectangle, buzzing like a trapped insect. The screen lit up. Owen Myers. I answered on the second ring. Dad. His voice was barely a whisper, clipped and controlled in the way it got when he was working. The way it got when something was very, very wrong. Listen to me carefully. Do not make a sound. Do not turn on any lights. Stay in the studio. Do not go downstairs. My chest tightened. Owen, what is happening? The angel is watching them right now, Dad. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I did not understand. Not yet. But something in his voice, something sharp and desperate beneath that professional calm, made me obey without question. I pressed my back against the cold wall of my studio, the phone against my ear, and I listened. Are they in the house? Owen asked. Yes. Meredith and Garrett. They are asleep downstairs. No. His voice hardened. They are not asleep. Dad, do not come down. No matter what you hear. I am 8 minutes away. Do you understand? 8 minutes. The line went dead. I stood there in the darkness of my attic studio, surrounded by the work of 44 years. Sheets of colored glass leaned against every wall. Cobalt blue, ruby red, amber gold. The skylight above showed nothing but black sky and a sliver of moon. Somewhere below me, in the house I had shared with my wife for 33 years, something terrible was happening, and I could not move. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand how I ended up hiding in my own attic at 3:47 in the morning, afraid of my own daughter, I need to go back. Back to before the fog. Before the pills. Before I learned what betrayal tastes like when it comes from the person you love most in this world. My name is Franklin Myers. I am 68 years old, and I have spent 44 years turning broken glass into something beautiful. Stained glass. That is my craft, my art, my life. I work with pieces that nobody else wants. Shattered panes from demolished churches. Cracked panels pulled from condemned buildings. Fragments that most people would sweep into a dustpan and throw away. I see what others miss. The way a hairline fracture catches light differently than a clean edge. The way a chip in cobalt blue reveals a deeper shade beneath. Every flaw tells a story, if you know how to read it. My studio sits in the attic of our Craftsman house on Ridgecrest Lane, in West Asheville, North Carolina. From my workbench, I can see the Blue Ridge Mountains rolling toward the horizon, their peaks softened by distance and morning haze. Elaine, my wife, chose this house for that view. She said the mountain light was perfect for my work. She was right. She was always right about light. Elaine was a software engineer by trade, but an artist by nature. She understood systems, patterns, the invisible architecture beneath the surface of things. She could look at a problem the way I look at a damaged panel and see exactly where the fracture started, exactly how the pieces fit together. 9 months ago, Alzheimer's took her from me. Not suddenly, not mercifully, slowly, piece by piece. The way rust eats through lead came if you do not catch it in time. First her keys, then her words, then my name, then everything. The last thing she said to me, on a Tuesday afternoon in the memory care unit while the winter sun cast pale rectangles on the linoleum floor, was this. She gripped my hand with surprising strength, her eyes suddenly sharp and clear, like a window wiped clean after months of fog. "Watch Meredith," she whispered. "Something is wrong with her. Promise me. You will be careful." I promised. I kissed her forehead, and 6 hours later, she was gone. I did not understand what she meant. Meredith was our daughter, our little girl, the one who used to sit cross-legged on the studio floor, sorting glass scraps by color while I worked, the one who would hold fragments up to the window and gasp at the way sunlight transformed them. Why would I need to watch her? After the funeral, the house became a cathedral of silence. Every room echoed with absence. Elaine's reading glasses still sat on the kitchen windowsill. Her gardening gloves hung by the back door, fingers curled as if waiting for her hands. The guardian angel panel she had commissioned me to build 2 years before her diagnosis still hung in the living room. 6 feet tall, wings spread wide, eyes of sapphire blue gazing across the room with what I had always thought was serenity. I stopped taking commissions, stopped answering the phone, stopped going to the studio. The glass sat untouched, gathering dust, colors fading, without light to bring them alive. Owen called every few days from wherever the NSA had him stationed, his voice tight with worry. But he was far away, and I was too numb to ask for help. I drifted through those months like a ghost haunting my own life. And that is exactly what made me the perfect target. Because 6 months ago, on an October afternoon, when the Blue Ridge maples were burning gold and crimson outside my kitchen window, my daughter came home. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand how I ended up hiding in my own attic at 3:47 in the morning, afraid of my own daughter, I need to tell you about the day Meredith showed up with her husband. A suitcase, and a smile that should have warned me. The October light came through the kitchen windows like liquid honey. It was the kind of light Elaine had loved most. The kind that turned ordinary things golden. The kind that made you believe the world was kinder than it really was. Meredith sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. She looked like her mother in that light. Same dark hair, same high cheekbones, same way of tilting her head when she was about to say something important. Garrett stood behind her, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. He was tall, clean-shaven, with the kind of face you forget 5 minutes after meeting him. Pleasant, but unremarkable. He wore a pressed button-down shirt even on a Saturday, the collar crisp and white. Former insurance adjuster. New policies in fine print. The way I knew lead came. And flux. "Dad," Meredith said, her voice soft with concern. "You should not be alone in this big house. It is too much. The yard, the bills, the maintenance." She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were warm. "Cameron and I have been talking. Our lease is up next month anyway. What if we moved in? Just for a while. Until you are back on your feet." I looked at her hand on mine. Small, delicate. The same hand that used to reach up to me when she was 4 years old, asking to be lifted to the studio window so she could see the glass catch the morning sun. "I do not want to be a burden," I said. Garrett stepped forward, his smile easy and practiced. "You could never be a burden, Franklin." He had never called me Dad. "Always, Franklin. You have worked hard your entire life. Let us handle things for a while. The yard work, the bills, whatever you need. You deserve to rest. Rest." The words settled over me like a warm blanket. I was so tired. Tired of the empty rooms. Tired of cooking for one. Tired of the silence that pressed against my eardrums every night like deep water. "Are you sure?" I asked, looking at Meredith. "I do not want to get in the way of your life." "Dad." She squeezed my hand and smiled. That smile. "You are my life. Let me take care of you. The way you took care of me." So I said yes. They moved in the following Saturday. A rental truck pulled up at 7 in the morning, and by noon the guest bedroom was full of their things. Meredith hung new curtains in the kitchen. Garrett mowed the lawn that afternoon, the first time it had been cut in 2 months. The smell of fresh grass drifted through the open windows, mixing with the scent of the lasagna Meredith was baking for dinner. That first week felt like resurrection. The house had breath again. Movement. Sound. Meredith humming in the kitchen. Garrett's footsteps on the porch. The television on in the evening. Voices filling the rooms that had been silent for so long. I remember sitting in the living room one evening, Meredith beside me on the sofa. Her head resting on my shoulder the way she used to when she was small. The guardian angel panel caught the last light of the day from the west window. Colors spilled across the hardwood floor. Blue and gold, and deep rose. "It is beautiful, Dad," Meredith murmured, looking at the angel. "Mom loved that piece. I made it for her," I said. "She designed it, actually. Drew the pattern herself. Said she wanted an angel watching over the house." Meredith was quiet for a moment. Then she said, softly, "I miss her." "Me too, sweetheart. Every day." She squeezed my arm, and I felt something loosen in my chest. A knot I had been carrying since the funeral. Maybe this was what I needed. Family. Warmth. Someone to remind me that I was not alone in the world. I thought about Meredith at 7 years old. Cross-legged on the studio floor. Glass fragments spread around her like jewels. She would sort them by color, holding each piece up to the window, watching the light transform them. "Daddy, why does broken glass make rainbows?" "Because light needs something broken to pass through, sweetheart. That is how beauty works. It finds the cracks." She had looked at me with those wide eyes full of wonder. "You are magic." "Daddy, I was not magic. I was just a man who understood broken things." But in that memory, in that golden afternoon light, I had felt like the luckiest father in the world. Now, 30 years later, she was here again, taking care of me. And I let myself believe. It was love. The signs were there from the beginning, if I had known to look. But grief makes you blind. Loneliness makes you deaf. And I was both. Garrett offered to help with the bills on day 2. "Just to take the stress off," he said. Before the week was out, he had my bank statements spread across the dining room table, a calculator beside him, his pen moving methodically down each column. He asked about my retirement accounts, about the value of the house, about how much my glass collection might be worth if I ever decided to sell. "Just curious," he said. "For insurance purposes. You want to make sure everything is properly covered," I told him. The house, appraised at $1.4 million. The collection, 23 significant pieces, worth roughly $2.8 million to the right buyers. The retirement accounts, the savings Elaine and I had built over 40 years. He wrote it all down in his neat, precise handwriting. And he smiled. That should have been my first warning. But I was too grateful, too relieved to have people in the house again. To hear the alarm bells ringing somewhere deep beneath my grief. On the 3rd night, Meredith came to my bedroom with a glass of water and a small white pill in her palm. "The doctor prescribed these for you, Dad. For your memory. They will help keep you sharp." I did not remember visiting any doctor. Did not remember any prescription. But Meredith seemed so certain, so caring. Her eyes were soft with concern, her smile gentle. I took the pill from her hand and swallowed it with a sip of water. "Good," she said, brushing the hair from my forehead the way Elaine used to. "Sleep well, Dad. We are right here, if you need anything." She closed the door. And in the darkness of my bedroom, something shifted. Something so small, I did not feel it. Like the first invisible crack in a sheet of glass. The kind that spreads slowly, silently, until the whole pane shatters without warning. The fog began that night. It started with the edges. The world lost its sharpness, like looking through a pane of glass that had not been cleaned in years. Objects that should have been crisp became soft, outlines blurred, Colors bled into each other the way watercolors do when you use too much water. I noticed it first in the studio. I had gone up to work on a commission I had accepted months before Elaine's diagnosis. A rose window reproduction for a small church in Hendersonville. 42 pieces of hand-cut glass, each one needing precision to within a 16th of an inch. I had been doing this work for 44 years. My hands knew the movements the way a pianist's fingers know the keys. But that morning, 3 days after the pills began, I stood at my workbench and could not remember why I was there. I looked at the glass cutter in my hand, looked at the pattern pinned to the board, looked at the sheet of ruby red glass waiting on the cutting mat, and none of it connected. It was like walking into a room and forgetting the word for door. I set the cutter down, picked it up again, tried to score a line along the pattern. My hand trembled. The line wandered, drifting off the mark by a full quarter inch. I had not made a cut that poor since I was an apprentice at 24 years old. I tried again. Worse. The glass cracked wrong, splintering where it should have broken clean. A piece I had spent $30 on, ruined in an instant. I stared at my hands. They were shaking. Not much, just a fine tremor, like leaves in a breeze, too gentle to feel on your skin. But for a man whose livelihood depended on steadiness, on precision, on the absolute control of pressure and angle, it might as well have been an earthquake. Maybe I am just tired, I told myself. Maybe I did not sleep well, but it happened again the next day. And the next. Each morning I climbed those stairs to the studio with less confidence. Each afternoon I came back down with less accomplished. Sentences would start in my head and dissolve halfway through, like sugar in hot water. I would walk to the kitchen for coffee and find myself standing at the sink 5 minutes later. The mug still empty in my hand, unable to recall what I had come for. Meredith noticed, of course. She was always watching, always there with a gentle touch on my arm. A soft question. "Are you feeling okay, Dad? You seem a little confused today." "I am fine," I would say. "Just tired." She would nod, her eyes full of concern. "That is why you need your rest. And your vitamins." The vitamins. Every night without fail. Sometimes Meredith brought them. Sometimes Garrett. Always the same small white pill. The same glass of water. The same patient smile while they watched me swallow. Watched until the pill was gone. Then came the hallucinations. The first one happened on a Tuesday night, 2 weeks after the pills started. I woke at what the clock said was 2:14 in the morning. The house was dark and silent. I needed the bathroom, so I swung my legs off the bed and shuffled into the hallway. That is when I saw the light, color, moving on the walls. Blue and crimson and deep violet, shifting and flowing, like the aurora borealis, had somehow gotten trapped inside my house. The light moved slowly, deliberately, as if something were walking past the stained glass panels downstairs, casting their colors up through the stairwell. But there was no light source, no car headlights outside, no lamp left on. The colors moved on their own, pulsing gently against the hallway walls. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The colors shifted, drifted toward the staircase, and faded. Then, silence, darkness. I told myself it was nothing. A dream bleeding into wakefulness. Grief playing tricks on an old man's tired mind. But it happened again 3 nights later. And again the following week. Always between 2 and 3 in the morning. Always the same impossible colors moving through the house, like something alive. Then came the night I saw her. I woke to the sound of my own name. Not spoken aloud. More like a thought that had not come from inside my head. Franklin. I sat up in bed. The hallway was dark. But downstairs, through the open bedroom door, I could see a faint glow coming from the living room. Blue. The exact shade of sapphire blue I had used for the guardian angel's eyes. I stood, My legs felt unsteady, heavy, as if the air had turned to water. I moved toward the stairs, gripping the banister, each step requiring more effort than it should. The blue light grew stronger as I descended, and there she was, Elaine, standing in front of the guardian angel panel, wearing the white dress we had buried her in. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, the way she used to wear it on Sunday mornings. Her face was pale, luminous, lit from within by that sapphire glow. She was looking at me, not speaking, not moving, just watching with eyes so full of sadness that my chest felt like it would crack open. Elaine. My voice came out as a broken whisper. Elaine, is that you? She did not answer. The blue light pulsed once, twice, and her image flickered like a candle in a draft. I reached toward her. My hand was shaking badly now, reaching across the dark living room toward my dead wife, then a hand on my shoulder. Real, warm, firm. Dad. Meredith's voice, gentle but insistent. Dad, wake up. You are sleepwalking again. I blinked. The blue light was gone. Elaine was gone. Just the dark living room, the guardian angel panel catching a sliver of moonlight through the window, and Meredith standing beside me in her bathrobe. I saw her. I whispered, Your mother. She was right there. Meredith guided me back toward the stairs, her arm around my waist. Oh, Dad. It was a dream. The mind plays tricks at night, especially when we are grieving. That is why you need your rest. She paused. And your vitamins? She tucked me into bed like I was a child, pulled the blanket up to my chin, smoothed my hair back from my forehead, and in the darkness, after she left, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart still hammering. I was losing my mind. That was the only explanation. The grief had finally cracked something fundamental inside me, something that could not be repaired. I was 68 years old, and I was falling apart. Maybe they were right. Maybe I needed help. Maybe I could no longer trust my own eyes, my own hands, my own mind. That is what I believed. For weeks, that is what I believed. That the fog was natural, that the trembling was age, that the hallucinations were grief given form. I was wrong. Someone was breaking me on purpose, cracking me from the inside out, the way a careless hand cracks a pane of glass, not with a single blow, but with patient, deliberate pressure applied exactly where the structure was weakest. And I did not see it. Because the person holding the hammer was the one person I still trusted with my life. The first camera appeared on a Monday afternoon. I was sitting in the living room, half dozing in my armchair, when the sound of a drill pulled me back to the surface. A sharp whine of metal biting into plaster, then silence, then another burst. Garrett stood on a stepladder in the corner of the room, near the crown molding. He had a small black device in his hand, no bigger than a matchbox. He pressed it into the hole he had made and tightened something with a screwdriver. What are you doing? I asked, my voice thick with the fog that never seemed to lift. He looked down at me and smiled. That smile, patient, reassuring, the kind you give to a child who has asked a question with an obvious answer. Just a security camera, Franklin, for your safety. In case you fall or have one of your episodes at night, we want to be able to help you right away. Episodes. He meant the hallucinations, the sleepwalking, the confusion. All of it, caused by the pills I did not yet know I was being fed. I nodded. It seemed reasonable. I was 68. My wife was gone. I had been seeing things. Maybe it was not such a bad idea to have someone watching. But Garrett did not stop at one. Over the next 3 days, cameras appeared everywhere. The hallway upstairs. The kitchen, angled toward the stove and the counters. The bathroom, tucked behind the mirror's edge, where I almost missed it. That one made me pause. I stood staring at the tiny black lens for a long time, feeling something cold settle behind my ribs. When I asked about it, Garrett was ready. What if you slip in the shower, Franklin? What if you have a dizzy spell? At your age, we cannot be too careful. We just want to keep you safe. At your age. He said that a lot. 3 words that took everything I had accomplished in 68 years and reduced it to a liability. I counted 7 cameras by the end of the week. Living room, kitchen, hallway, bathroom, front door, back door, the landing at the top of the stairs, but none in their bedroom, none in their private bathroom, and none in my studio. When I asked about the studio, Garrett had his answer prepared. The chemicals, Franklin, turpentine, flux, the lead fumes from soldering. They would corrode the camera housing in a week. Besides, you are safe up there. You are doing what you love. I had been working with those materials for 44 years. I knew the ventilation system Elaine and I had installed kept the air perfectly clean, but I did not argue. The fog was too heavy. The words were too difficult to find and hold on to long enough to speak, so the cameras stayed. 7 black eyes watching me in my own home. Everywhere except the one room where they slept and the one room where I worked. Then came the phone. Owen called on a Wednesday evening. I saw his name light up the screen. Owen Myers. My heart lifted. I had not spoken to him in nearly 2 weeks, which was unusual. Owen called every Sunday without fail. I reached for the phone. Garrett was faster. He appeared from nowhere, his hand closing over the device before my fingers could touch it. His thumb swiped across the screen, declining the call. Franklin, you should be resting. Owen is probably just checking in. I will text him later. Let him know you are doing fine. I want to talk to my son, I said. And I hated how thin my voice sounded. How uncertain. Garrett's expression shifted into something that might have been sympathy. Owen is busy, Franklin. Important work. National security. The last thing he needs is to worry about you. We have got everything handled here. I wanted to grab the phone. I wanted to shout that Owen was my son, that I had every right to speak with him. But the fog pressed down on my thoughts, making everything too heavy to lift. So I sat there, silent, while Garrett slipped my phone into his back pocket and walked away. It happened again 2 days later, and again the following Sunday. 3 calls from Owen in 10 days. 3 calls declined. 3 conversations I never had. I was being caged. The cameras were the bars. The pills were the lock. And my own daughter and her husband were the keepers. But the worst discovery came on a Thursday morning. Meredith and Garrett had left for errands. The house was empty. I was looking for a pen in the kitchen drawer when I knocked a stack of papers off the counter. I knelt to gather them. My knees protested. My hands fumbled with the scattered pages. And then one particular sheet caught my eye. Official letterhead. Crestview Behavioral Institute. A crest with laurel leaves, and the tagline, Excellence in Cognitive and Behavioral Wellness. Below that, a photograph of a modern building surrounded by manicured lawns and tall oak trees. But it was not the brochure that made my hands start to shake. It was the form beneath it. An intake evaluation for psychiatric commitment. My name at the top. Franklin Myers. Age, 68. Date of birth. Address. Social security number. All filled in. Neat handwriting. Garrett's handwriting. Below my information, a checklist. Hallucinations. Paranoia. Memory loss. Inability to care for self. Danger to self or others. Aggressive episodes. The boxes were not checked yet. The form was waiting, but it was ready. Someone had prepared it. Someone was planning to have me evaluated, to have me declared incompetent, to lock me away. I turned the page. Beneath the Crestview form was another document. Legal language. Dense paragraphs of whereases and therefores. I squinted at it, forcing my foggy mind to process the words. Power of attorney. durable, and irrevocable. And at the bottom, in shaking, uncertain handwriting that I barely recognized as my own, my signature. I had signed this. I did not remember signing it, did not remember reading it, did not remember anyone putting a pen in my hand. But there it was, my name, giving Meredith and Garrett complete legal control over my finances, my property, my medical decisions, everything. I stood in the kitchen, the autumn light streaming through the windows, holding my own death sentence in my trembling hands. The house was silent around me. The cameras watched from their corners, and somewhere outside, Meredith and Garrett were driving home, satisfied that their plan was proceeding exactly on schedule. They thought I was too far gone to understand what I had found. They thought the fog had swallowed me completely. They were wrong, because even through the haze, even through the trembling and the confusion and the drugged half-sleep they had kept me in for weeks, one thought broke through with absolute clarity. I had to get off those pills. I had to clear my head. And I had to do it without them knowing. That night, when Meredith appeared in my doorway with the glass of water and the small white pill resting in her palm, I was ready. She smiled. The same smile she always gave. Soft, caring, the smile of a devoted daughter. Vitamin time, Dad. You know the drill. I took the pill from her hand, placed it on my tongue, lifted the glass to my lips, let the water wash over it. Cool and clean. But I did not swallow. The pill sat beneath my tongue, chalky and bitter against the soft tissue. I kept my face neutral, swallowed the water only, let my throat move in the way she expected to see. Meredith watched me. Her eyes tracked the glass, tracked my throat, tracked my expression. For a moment, something flickered in her gaze. Suspicion. Assessment. Then, it passed. Good, she said softly. She reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. Her fingertips were cool against my skin. Sleep well, Dad. We love you. She pulled the door closed. Her footsteps retreated down the hallway. I waited, counted to 60. Then I turned my head to the side, spat the pill into my palm, and held it up to the thin strip of moonlight coming through the window. Small, round, chalky white. No markings, no imprint from a pharmaceutical company. No letters or numbers pressed into the surface. Every legitimate medication I had ever taken had some kind of identification. These had nothing. I closed my fist around it and lay in the dark, my heart beating hard against my ribs. The next morning, I carried the pill up to the studio, my sanctuary, the one room in the house without eyes watching from the corners. I set it on the workbench beside 2 glasses of water. In the first glass, I dropped the pill Meredith had given me. In the second, I dropped a multivitamin from the bottle Elaine and I used to share, the one still sitting in the medicine cabinet from before everything changed. I watched. The multivitamin fizzed briefly, dissolved within a minute, leaving the water clear with a faint orange tint from the coating. Normal. Expected. The way a vitamin should behave. The white pill sank slowly. Then it began to dissolve. But not like a vitamin. It released a cloud of gray sediment that swirled through the water like smoke, clinging to the sides of the glass, settling at the bottom in a thick, murky layer. The water turned the color of dirty dishwater. I stared at both glasses for a long time, side by side. Clear orange, murky gray. The evidence of what my daughter had been putting into my body every single night, for weeks. Vitamins do not do that. I poured both glasses down the drain, washed them clean, and sat down at the old desk in the corner of the studio. The laptop was there, the one I used for reference photos and correspondence with clients. Dusty now. Untouched for months. I opened it, waited for it to boot, and pulled up a private browser window. My fingers felt clumsy on the keys. The fog was still there, pressing against the inside of my skull. But I forced myself to type. drug-induced hallucinations, elderly. Sedative symptoms, confusion, trembling, memory loss, medications that cause paranoia in seniors. The results filled the screen. Benzodiazepines, hallucinogenic compounds, sedative hypnotics, anticholinergic drugs. Each one described symptoms I recognized intimately. Confusion, trembling hands, visual hallucinations, memory gaps, difficulty forming sentences, the feeling of moving through water. I clicked on an article from a medical journal. Elder abuse through chemical restraint. The words hit me like a physical blow. Chemical restraint, the deliberate use of medication to control, incapacitate, or subdue an elderly person without their informed consent. I read another article, and another, each one describing patterns I knew. The caring family member who administers medications, the gradual isolation from friends and support networks, the installation of monitoring equipment presented as concern, the slow, systematic dismantling of the victim's credibility, their confidence, their ability to advocate for themselves. Every single thing that had happened to me in the past weeks was described in those pages, step by step. Like a manual someone had followed. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms flat against the workbench. Through the skylight above me, the morning sun cast a rectangle of gold across the floor. Dust motes drifted in the beam, lazy and unhurried. The studio smelled the way it always had, flux and solder, linseed oil for the wooden frames, the faint metallic tang of cut glass. This room was real. This room was mine. And in this room, with the fog slowly beginning to thin, I could think. I did not take the pill that night. Or the next. Or the one after that. Each evening, Meredith came with her glass of water and her smile. Each evening, I performed the same careful theater. Pill on tongue, water to lips. Swallow nothing. Wait for her to leave. Spit. By the third day, the difference was unmistakable. The fog retreated like morning mist burning off the Blue Ridge peaks. My thoughts sharpened. My hands steadied. I picked up a glass cutter for the first time in weeks and scored a perfect line along a sheet of emerald green. Clean. Precise. Not a millimeter off the mark. I could see again. I could think again. I could feel the anger building behind my ribs like pressure. Inside a kiln. My daughter had been drugging me, poisoning me in my own home, in my own bed, with a smile on her face and love on her lips. She had made me believe I was losing my mind, made me doubt my own sanity, made me see my dead wife standing in the living room like a ghost. The hallucinations were not grief. They were chemistry. And the woman who kissed my forehead every night and said, "Sleep well, Dad," was the one putting them in my bloodstream. I stood in the studio that afternoon, the mountain light pouring through the skylight, and looked down through the doorway at the guardian angel panel, visible at the bottom of the stairs. Elaine's angel, 6 feet of colored glass and lead came. Wings spread wide, eyes of sapphire blue. And for the first time in weeks, something strange happened. Those eyes seemed different. Not sad, not distant. They seemed alert, watchful, almost alive. I shook my head. Just my imagination. Just the light playing tricks through glass. The way it always does. But I was wrong about that too. Those eyes were not imaginary. They were not tricks of light. They were something else entirely. Something my dying wife had hidden inside her final gift to me. I just did not know it yet. 3:47 in the morning. The prepaid phone buzzed against the wooden shelf. I had been keeping it charged the way Owen asked, hidden behind the row of glass-cutting tools. Forgotten for months. Now suddenly the most important object in my life. I answered before the second ring. "Dad." Owen's voice. Low. Controlled. The professional tone he used when lives were at stake. "Are you alone?" "I am in the studio." "They are asleep downstairs." "No, they are not," Owen said. "But we will get to that." How long have you been off the pills? My chest tightened. 5 days. How do you know about the pills? Because I have been investigating your situation for 3 months. Ever since Garrett started texting me from your phone pretending to be you. He misspelled your middle name. Dad, you would never do that. 3 months. While I had been stumbling through the fog, believing I was losing my mind, Owen had been working, watching, waiting. Dad, the man living in your house is not who he says he is. His real name is Garrett Simmons. 2 prior convictions for elder fraud in Florida and Arizona. Different aliases each time. He targets wealthy, elderly people, gains access through family members, isolates the victim, drains their assets. I sank onto the stool beside my workbench. My daughter had married a professional con artist, had brought him into my home. And Meredith? I asked. Is she a victim too? A long pause. The kind of silence that answers a question before words do. I do not know yet, Owen said carefully. I need more evidence. But Dad, there is something else. Something about Mom. My breath caught. Before the Alzheimer's got bad, Owen said. Mom contacted me. About 2 years ago. She was worried about Meredith. About questions Meredith had been asking. Your finances. The house. What would happen to the estate if something happened to you? 2 years ago. While Elaine was still lucid. Still sharp enough to see patterns I had been too blind to notice. Mom did something extraordinary. Owen continued. She asked me to help her set up a hidden surveillance system. She said she needed to protect you, in case she could not be there herself. My throat closed. Where? The guardian angel. Owen said. The panel she commissioned you to make. The sapphire eyes. I stopped breathing. 2 pinhole cameras, Dad. 1 in each eye. Smaller than a shirt button. Independent wireless network that does not show on any router. Motion activated. Automatic cloud upload to an encrypted account only she and I can access. She installed them herself while you were at a conference in Raleigh. The guardian angel. 6 feet of glass and lead I had soldered with my own hands. Elaine's design. And all along, hidden in those sapphire eyes, she had been building me a shield. Those eyes. The ones that seemed alive yesterday. They were alive. They had been alive for 2 years. Dad, there is a letter. Owen's voice cracked. Mom left it in her jewelry box. I found it after the funeral. She wrote it during a lucid moment near the end. Read it to me. Owen took a breath. My dearest Franklin. If you are hearing these words, then I am gone. And my worst fear has come true. Something is wrong with our Meredith. I have watched her change. I have seen the greed growing behind her eyes, like rot behind wallpaper. I have heard her questions. I know what she is planning. Owen paused. His voice thick. I could not stop her in life, my love. My mind is failing me. Every day I lose more of myself, but I will not leave you unprotected. Check the angel's eyes, Franklin. I put something there for you. My last gift. My last act of love. I could not protect you with my hands. So I built you a guardian instead. You are never alone. Even when I am gone, I am watching over you. Through the angel's eyes. Always. Tears ran down my face in the darkness. My wife. My brilliant, dying wife. Even as her memories crumbled to dust, she had held on to this one truth long enough to act. Owen, I said. My voice steady now. Tell me what to do. I need 10 days. I am building a clean case, but there are institutional barriers. The cameras are active. Everything they do in that living room is being recorded. I need you to activate the feed from your end. The old tablet in your studio. I am sending you an app link. Download it, log in, and the angel's eyes will be yours. I will do it. 10 days, Dad. Keep pretending to take the pills. Act foggy. Let them think you are still under control. And whatever happens, do not let them take you to Crestview. Once you are inside, getting you out is nearly impossible. I understand. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. The line went dead. I sat in the pre-dawn darkness, the phone warm in my hand, and looked down through the studio doorway to where the guardian angel hung in the living room below. I could just make out the shape of it in the gray light. The spread wings, the folded hands, and the eyes. Those sapphire eyes, looking back up at me through the darkness. You knew, I whispered. You always knew, Elaine. And you never left me. The silence held me. And in it, I felt something I had not felt in 9 months. I was not alone. Sleep was impossible after Owen's call. I sat in the dark studio, my back against the wall, mind racing through everything I had just learned. Garrett Simmons. 2 prior convictions. A professional predator wearing my son-in-law's face. And my wife, my brilliant dying wife, had seen it coming before anyone else. The tablet sat on the workbench where I had left it. Owen's app was downloaded. Credentials entered. But I had not activated the camera feed yet. That would come tomorrow, when Meredith and Garrett left the house. For now, I sat in the darkness and listened. The house below me was not silent. Not the way it should have been at nearly 2 in the morning. Through the studio floor, I could hear faint sounds, footsteps, the low murmur of voices, a door opening and closing. They were awake. I moved without thinking, guided by instinct. I lowered myself to my hands and knees on the studio floor, pressing my ear against the old hardwood. The sounds were clearer now, but still muffled. Words I could not quite make out. Movement I could feel more than hear. Then I noticed it. A gap in the floorboards. Not large. Maybe half an inch wide where the old wood had settled and shrunk over decades. I had walked over it 1,000 times without paying attention. But now, in the dark, with my face pressed close to the floor, I could see through it. Below me was the living room. The angle was narrow, but clear enough. I could see the edge of the sofa, the coffee table, the front door, and Garrett, standing in the middle of the room, fully dressed at 1:30 in the morning. He was not alone. 2 vehicles had pulled into the driveway without headlights. I had not heard them from the studio until now. Through the gap, I watched Garrett open the front door. 3 men entered, all of them tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing that blended into the shadows. They moved with efficiency. No greetings. No wasted motion. Just a quick nod from Garrett, and they spread out. One went straight to the filing cabinet in the corner. The old oak cabinet where I kept 44 years of documents. Client contracts. Insurance policies, property deeds, the provenance papers for every piece in my collection. The second man knelt beside the filing cabinet and pulled out the small safe I had bolted to the bottom shelf years ago. The safe that held the original deed to the house, Elaine's life insurance documents, our wills, and the certificates of authenticity for the 23 stained glass panels that comprised my life's work. He had it open in under a minute. No struggle. No fumbling. Either he had the combination or the tools to bypass it. Either way, the safe that should have protected my most important possessions opened for him as easily as a kitchen drawer. They pulled out everything. A thick manila envelope. Stacks of papers. The leather folder where I kept the collection documents. One of the men flipped through the pages quickly, nodded, and handed them to Garrett. Garrett checked them against something on his phone. A list, maybe. Making sure nothing was missing, I pressed my face harder against the gap, barely breathing. My heart hammered so loudly, I was certain they could hear it through the floor. But they never looked up, never glanced toward the ceiling. Why would they? I was supposed to be drugged unconscious in my bed. Compliant. Harmless. Already halfway to the psychiatric ward. 20 minutes. That is all it took. 20 minutes to dismantle the legal proof of everything I owned. The house Elaine and I had bought 33 years ago. The collection I had spent 4 decades building. The savings that were supposed to carry me through whatever years I had left. 20 minutes. Then they were gone. The two vehicles rolled back out of the driveway, headlights still dark, and disappeared down the mountain road. Garrett locked the front door and went back upstairs. I heard his footsteps pass my studio door. Heard the bedroom door close. Silence. I waited 10 full minutes. Then I crept downstairs, moving in the dark with a hand on the wall. The filing cabinet stood open, drawers pulled out and pushed back carelessly. The safe door hung ajar, its interior bare. The manila envelope was gone. The deed was gone. The insurance documents were gone. Half of the collection paperwork was gone. 44 years of careful record-keeping. Erased in 20 minutes by 3 men who moved like they had done this 100 times before. I stood in my living room, the guardian angel looming above me in the darkness, her sapphire eyes invisible in the shadows. My hands were shaking, but it was not fear anymore. It was not confusion. It was not the chemical fog they had been pumping into my brain for weeks. It was rage. Pure. Clean. Clarifying. I had spent 44 years training my eyes to see what others missed. The hairline crack invisible to anyone who did not know where to look. The subtle difference between original pigment and restoration. The flaw that revealed the forgery. Now those eyes were clear again, and they saw everything. I climbed back to the studio and sat by the window. The Blue Ridge Mountains were black silhouettes against a sky just beginning to lighten at the edges. Dawn was coming. And with it, a new phase. I was done being the victim. Done being the confused old man they could manipulate and medicate and rob in the dark. They had taken my documents, my security, my legal protections. But they had not taken my mind. They had not taken Owen. And they had not found the angel's eyes. Tomorrow, I would activate those cameras. Tomorrow, I would start gathering the evidence that would bring them down. And when the time came, when every piece was in place, they would learn what happens when you try to shatter a man who has spent his entire life putting broken things back together. The knock came at 9 the next morning. Soft. Unhurried. Not the way Garrett knocked, which was always 2 sharp raps followed by the door opening whether you answered or not. I was in the kitchen, performing my morning routine. Shuffling. Staring blankly at the coffee maker. Letting my shoulders slump the way they had when the drugs were still coursing through me. The cameras watched from their corners, and I gave them exactly what they expected to see. A confused old man. Harmless. Fading. I opened the front door. Pastor James Whitmore stood on the porch, a foil-wrapped loaf of banana bread in his hands. 64 years old, silver-haired, with the posture of a man who had spent 20 years in law enforcement before finding the pulpit. He had been our neighbor for a decade, led the congregation at Grace Fellowship Church 3 blocks away, the church where my largest commissioned piece hung above the altar. 16 panels of glass depicting the resurrection. Elaine and I had spent 2 years on that project. Franklin, he said. His voice was warm, but his eyes were doing something else entirely. They were scanning, assessing. The way a cop's eyes never stop working, even decades after the badge comes off. I brought you some bread. Martha's recipe. Thank you, James. I stepped aside to let him in, keeping my movements slow and uncertain. He set the bread on the hall table and turned to face me. His gaze moved across my features. The pallor I no longer had to fake entirely. The weight I had lost. The way my clothes hung loose on my frame after weeks of barely eating. You do not look right, he said quietly. His expression shifted from neighborly concern to something sharper, more clinical. I have seen this before, Franklin. I know what it looks like. Before I could respond, footsteps behind me. Garrett appeared from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, his smile already fixed in place. Pastor Whitmore, how nice of you to drop by. But Franklin really needs his rest. He has not been sleeping well. You understand. James did not move. Did not blink. He looked at Garrett the way he had probably once looked at suspects across an interrogation table, I understand more than you think, he said evenly. I have been a nurse. My wife has. And I was a police officer for 20 years before I was called to serve. I know medication issues when I see them. Garrett's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. His eyes flicked to the camera in the hallway corner. Then back to James. We appreciate your concern, Pastor. But Franklin's family is handling his care. He does not need outside interference. James straightened to his full height. Elder abuse is not a private family matter, Mr. Tate. It is a crime. The air in the hallway froze. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Garrett's mask slipped. Just for an instant, something cold and flat surfaced behind his eyes, something that had nothing to do with the polite son-in-law he pretended to be. Be careful with accusations, Pastor, Garrett said softly. Slander is also a crime. James held his gaze for a long moment. Then he turned to me, his expression softening. Franklin, you have my number. Call me any time. His eyes held mine, steady and deliberate. Any time at all. He picked up his bread, nodded once, and walked out the front door. Garrett closed it behind him, a little too firmly. I do not want that man in this house again, Garrett said. His voice was controlled but tight. He is filling your head with paranoid ideas. People like him cause more harm than good. I nodded. Shuffled. Let my eyes drift unfocused. Okay, I mumbled. Okay. Garrett studied me for a moment. Then he walked away, apparently satisfied that I was still the compliant, drugged old man he expected. 2 hours later, Garrett and Meredith left for what they called errands. The moment their car pulled out of the driveway, I heard the soft tap at the back door. James Whitmore stood on the rear steps, his expression urgent. They are gone? He asked. Gone, I said. Come upstairs. We sat in the studio. The one room without cameras. The one room where I could speak freely. James looked around at the sheets of colored glass, the soldering equipment, the half-finished panels leaning against the walls. Then he looked at me. How long? He asked simply. 6 months, I said. Pills every night. I stopped taking them 5 days ago. James nodded slowly. My sister, Sarah, he said. His voice dropped. 8 years ago. Her daughter-in-law had her committed to a facility outside Raleigh, said Sarah was delusional, dangerous. Within 4 months, Sarah was dead. By the time I understood what was really happening, it was too late. His jaw tightened. A decade of guilt surfacing in the hard line of his mouth. I did not fight hard enough for her. I let them convince me she was sick, that the family knew best. He met my eyes. I will not make that mistake again, I told him. Not everything, but enough. The pills, the cameras, the Crestview form, the documents stolen from my safe. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing harder with each detail. When I finished, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small notebook. I have been keeping a log, he said. Dates, times, things I have observed from outside. Meredith intercepting your mail. Garrett turning away visitors. The way you have looked these past months. Confused. Unsteady. Nothing like the man I have known for 10 years. He set the notebook on my workbench. Then he pulled out a brass key on a plain ring. Grace Fellowship, he said. 3 blocks away. If you need to get out, if they come for you in the night, that door is always open. There is a phone in my office, food in the pantry, and they will never think to look for you in a church. James, I whispered, thank you. Do not thank me. Just promise you will fight. Promise you will not let them win the way they won with Sarah. I promise. He squeezed my shoulder once, hard, and left through the back door. That evening, I sat in the studio and listened through the floorboards. Garrett's voice carried up from the living room, tight with irritation. The pastor is becoming a problem. Meredith's reply was cold. Calm. So we move faster. If he talks to the wrong people, this whole thing unravels. I pressed my ear harder against the floor, but their voices dropped to murmurs I could not make out. It did not matter. I had heard enough. They were afraid. For the first time since they had moved into my house, Meredith and Garrett were afraid, and afraid people make mistakes. Tomorrow, I would activate the angel's eyes. And when they made those mistakes, Elaine would be watching. I waited until I heard Garrett's car back out of the driveway. Listened for the engine fading down the mountain road. Counted to 100. Then I walked downstairs with the old tablet in my hand and stood before the guardian angel, 6 feet tall. Wings of amber and gold spreading wide across the panel. Robes of deep emerald cascading to the base. Hands folded in prayer. Holding a single white lily crafted from opalescent glass that caught the light and scattered it like water. And the eyes. I had cut those sapphire pieces myself. Beveled the edges. Soldered them into the lead. Came with more care than any other element in the entire composition. Elaine had insisted on the exact shade. Not the bright, cheerful blue of a summer sky. A deeper shade. Darker. The blue of deep ocean. The blue that watches and remembers. I had thought it was an artistic choice. Now I understood. It was a practical one. I opened Owen's app on the tablet. The interface was simple. A login screen. The credentials Owen had texted me. I typed them in with fingers that trembled only slightly. The screen loaded. A green circle pulsed in the center. Camera 1. Active. Camera 2. Active. Network status. Independent. Secure. Cloud upload. Enabled. Encrypted. I tapped the live feed icon. The screen flickered. And suddenly, I was looking at myself. The camera's perspective was startling. I was standing directly in the angel's line of sight. Tablet in hand. My face filling the frame. The image was clear. Sharper than I expected. The pinhole lenses Elaine had chosen were remarkably good for their size. I could see the grain of my shirt. The lines around my eyes. The slight tremor in my hands. I stepped to the side. The camera's field of view opened up. I could see the entire living room. The sofa directly ahead. The coffee table. The front door to the left. The edge of the hallway leading to the kitchen. Anyone sitting on that sofa would be directly in frame, their face clearly visible, their voice easily captured by the built-in microphones. I tested the audio. Spoke aloud in a normal conversational tone. Played back the recording. My voice came through crisp and clean. Every word distinct. I stood there for a long moment, looking up at the angel's face. At those sapphire eyes that now held a different meaning entirely. Elaine had designed this face, had specified every curve of the cheek, every strand of the hair, every fold of the robe, and hidden inside the most beautiful part of it, the eyes, she had placed her final gift. I reached up and touched the glass gently, my fingertips against the cool, smooth surface of the angel's cheek. "Thank you," I whispered. "You could not speak anymore. Could not remember my name most days. But you found a way. You built me something that would outlast both of us. I do not know if you can hear me, Elaine, but if you can, know that I see what you did. And I will not waste it." The glass was warm beneath my fingers, morning sunlight streaming through the east window, heating the colored panels from behind. For a moment, the angel seemed to glow from within. The sapphire eyes caught the light and burned like twin blue stars. Then I stepped back, wiped my eyes, and went to work. I spent the next 2 hours preparing. I connected the tablet to the studio's wireless network, a separate system from the house router that Owen had confirmed was invisible to Garrett's devices. I tested the motion activation, walked in and out of the living room, watching the feed spring to life each time I crossed the angel's field of vision. I checked the cloud upload, confirming that every recording was automatically saved to the encrypted server within seconds of being captured. When I was satisfied, I returned the tablet to the studio and hid it beneath a stack of patterned papers on my workbench. Then I went back downstairs and resumed my performance. The shuffling walk, the vacant expression, the confused old man who could barely remember what day it was. Meredith and Garrett returned at 4 in the afternoon. I heard them come in, heard the rustle of grocery bags, heard Meredith's bright false voice call up the stairs. "Dad, we are home. Do you want some tea?" "No thank you, sweetheart," I called back, my voice carefully dull. "Just resting." "Good, Dad. Rest is good for you." I waited. The house settled into its evening routine. Dinner. Television. Meredith bringing me my pill at 8:30, which I tucked under my tongue and disposed of in the bathroom. Then silence as I pretended to sleep. At 9:47, the tablet on my workbench lit up. I was already in the studio, waiting. I picked up the tablet and pressed the earbuds into my ears. The live feed showed the living room below. Meredith and Garrett had settled onto the sofa, drinks in hand, relaxed, comfortable. They thought they were alone. They thought they were safe. They had no idea the angel was watching. Garrett stretched his arm across the back of the sofa, his posture loose and confident. "So," he said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, "the Crestview appointment with Harmon is confirmed for next Friday. He will declare your father incompetent. By Saturday, we will have the commitment papers." Meredith took a sip of wine, her expression thoughtful, contemplative, not a trace of guilt. "Are you sure he will sign off?" Garrett laughed. A low, easy sound that made my stomach turn. "I paid him $60,000, babe. He would sign off on committing the Pope if I asked him to." Meredith smiled. 60,000. "And how much total are we looking at once Dad is in Crestview?" Garrett held up his hand and counted on his fingers. "House. 1.4 million. Glass collection. Ashford says 2.8 on the private market. Retirement accounts. 1.9. He grinned. 6.1 million total. Not bad for 6 months of playing the loving daughter. The words hit me like a blade between the ribs. 6 months of playing the loving daughter. Every smile, every touch, every gentle word at bedtime. Performance, theater, a mask she wore while poisoning me from the inside out. I pressed the record button, though the system was already saving automatically. I wanted to be certain. I wanted every word, every laugh, every casual reference to destroying my life preserved in permanent, undeniable clarity. Tears ran down my face in the silence of the studio. Below me, beneath the sapphire eyes of the angel my wife had built, my daughter was laughing about the price of my life, and she did not know that Elaine was listening. I was still recording when it happened. Meredith and Garrett had been talking for another 20 minutes. Logistics, timelines, which documents they still needed to forge, which accounts to drain first, once the commitment was signed. Cold clinical discussion of my dismantlement, delivered with the casual ease of people planning a kitchen renovation. Then Meredith's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Something shifted in her face. Subtle. A softening around the eyes. A slight parting of the lips. The kind of involuntary reaction that comes from seeing a name you have been waiting for. "I need to take this," she said, standing quickly. Garrett barely looked up from his drink. "Sure, babe." Meredith walked out of the camera's direct view, moving toward the hallway. But the microphone in the angel's left eye was sensitive enough to capture her voice, even at a distance. Muffled. Softer. Audible. "Hey." A pause. Her voice dropped lower. "Yeah. Everything is on schedule. Friday evaluation. Saturday commitment. By Monday the transfers start." Another pause. She laughed. Quiet. Intimate. The kind of laugh I had not heard her give Garrett in all the months they had lived under my roof. "I know. I miss you too. Soon. I promise." A longer pause. Then her voice changed again. Warmer, tender, almost breathless. I love you too. I froze. The tablet nearly slipped from my hands. I love you too. Not the way you say it to a friend. Not the way you say it to family. The way you say it to someone you are in love with. Someone you are hiding. Meredith returned to the living room a moment later, sliding her phone into her pocket. Her expression was composed again. Neutral. The mask back in place. Who was that? Garrett asked, not looking up from his phone. Just a friend, Meredith said easily. Checking in about brunch this weekend. Garrett nodded. Took another sip of his drink. Completely unbothered. But I sat in the darkness of my studio, earbuds pressed into my ears, my mind racing. A friend. That was a lie. I had raised this woman. I knew her voice in all its registers. And that voice on the phone, that warm, aching whisper, that was not friendship. Who was she talking to? Who did my daughter love besides the husband sitting 3 feet away from her? I replayed the audio twice. 3 times. Each time, the tenderness in her voice cut deeper. I love you too. 4 words that meant there was another layer to this. Another person involved. Another piece of this conspiracy that I had not yet seen. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, turning possibilities over in my mind. Was this someone new? Someone pulling strings from outside? Or was this relationship older than Garrett? Was Garrett himself just another piece being moved across someone else's board? The answer came the next afternoon. Meredith left at 10 in the morning. Said she had a hair appointment. Garrett had gone earlier, something about meeting a client downtown. The house was empty. I sat in the studio with the tablet, reviewing footage from the morning. Nothing of interest. Empty living room. Sunlight moving slowly across the floor. Then, at 12:17, the motion sensor activated. I looked at the screen. The front door was opening. Meredith stepped inside first. She had not gone to any hair appointment. She looked the same as when she left, but she was not alone. A man followed her through the door. I had never seen him before. Tall, over 6 feet. Broad shoulders filling an expensive charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored to his body. Dark hair cut short and precise. A jaw that looked carved from stone. And eyes. Even through the camera's small lens, even from across the room, I could see his eyes, pale gray, cold. The eyes of a man who calculated the value of everything he looked at. He moved through my living room with the ease of someone who had been there before. He knew the layout. Knew where the sofa was. Knew to step around the coffee table. This was not his first visit. Meredith turned to face him. And the mask she wore for Garrett, for me, for the world, fell away completely. She smiled. A real smile. The first genuine expression I had seen on her face in months. Then she crossed the room in 3 quick steps, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him. Not a greeting. Not a peck. A real kiss. Long and deep and hungry. The kind that says, I have been waiting for this. The kind that says, you are the one I chose. I stared at the tablet screen. My daughter was kissing a stranger in my living room, under her dead mother's eyes. In the house where she had grown up, where I had taught her about light and glass and second chances. The man's hands settled on her waist. Possessive. Familiar. This was not new. This had been happening for a long time. They broke apart after what felt like an eternity. He settled onto the sofa, pulling her down beside him. She leaned into his shoulder, her hand on his knee. Comfortable. Natural. The body language of 2 people who knew each other intimately. I turned up the volume. So, the man said. His voice was smooth. Confident. The kind of voice that filled boardrooms and silenced objections. We are still on schedule? Saturday? Meredith nodded, tracing a pattern on his knee. Harmon does the evaluation Friday. Commitment Saturday morning. Garrett handles the paperwork. The man smiled. A thin, satisfied expression that did not reach those pale eyes. And Garrett still does not suspect. Meredith laughed. That cold musical laugh I was beginning to know too well. He thinks we are splitting everything 50-50 after Crestview. He has no idea about the offshore accounts. My hands went rigid around the tablet. Offshore accounts. Garrett did not know. Garrett thought he was a partner, but he was something else entirely. He was the same thing I was. A tool. A means to an end. Someone being used. The man leaned back, draping his arm around Meredith's shoulders. 6.1 million, he said. Transferred within 48 hours of commitment. By the time Garrett figures it out, we will be in Grand Cayman. Grand Cayman. Offshore accounts. They were not just stealing from me. They were planning to disappear. Offshore. Of lease. Of Lee. 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 And Garrett, the professional con artist who thought he was running the game, was going to be left holding the evidence, taking the fall, going to prison. While my daughter flew to the Caribbean with the man she actually loved, I watched them on the screen. Meredith nestled against this stranger, laughing softly at something he murmured in her ear. Comfortable in my house. Comfortable under my wife's watching eyes. She had no idea those eyes were real. I took a screenshot of the man's face. Clear. Well lit. Unmistakable. Then I saved the entire recording and sent both to Owen with a single message. There is someone else. Find out who this is. Owen's reply came 40 minutes later. A text message. Then a photo. Then a file. Dominic Ashworth. Age 42. Gallery owner. Ashworth Fine Arts, Manhattan. On FBI watch list. Since 2022. For suspected money laundering and art fraud. 2 prior relationships with wealthy women, both ending in unexplained financial losses. Never charged. Never enough evidence. I stared at the photo Owen had sent. The same face I had captured on camera an hour earlier. Same cold gray eyes. Same jawline. Same expensive suit. A professional headshot from his gallery's website. All polish and confidence. Then Owen's next message. Dad, this is bigger than we thought. Ashworth is connected to an underground network that fences stolen artwork. He has been investigated twice, but the cases fell apart. If he is involved with Meredith, this is not just elder fraud. This is organized crime. I set the phone down and turned back to the tablet. The recording from earlier was still playing. Dominic and Meredith on the sofa, their conversation continuing. I had paused it when I sent Owen the screenshot. Now I pressed play. Dominic was speaking, his arms still draped around my daughter's shoulders. His tone was casual, businesslike, as if he were discussing stock portfolios, rather than the systematic destruction of my life. The glass collection alone will bring 2.8 million through Ashford, he said. I have a buyer in Dubai who collects American stained glass. Rare pieces. The kind your father makes. Meredith nodded. 23 panels. Some of them commissioned by museums. Some he restored from ruins. There are provenance papers for every single one. Dominic smiled. Provenance we can forge if needed. But legitimate paperwork makes it easier. Once your father is committed and declared incompetent, we sign the sale documents on his behalf. Power of attorney makes it perfectly legal. On paper, at least. I thought of the papers Garrett's men had stolen from my safe. The certificates of authenticity. The provenance documents. They already had everything they needed to sell my life's work to the highest bidder. And Garrett? Dominic asked. His voice carried a note of amusement. Like this was all a game. Meredith leaned back, crossing her legs, completely relaxed. Garrett thinks he is getting half of everything. He thinks we are partners. She laughed. The poor idiot. His name is on every document, every communication with Harmon, every wire transfer. Every piece of evidence that could possibly incriminate us has his signature on it instead. Dominic's smile widened. So when this unravels, and it always does, eventually, Meredith finished his sentence. Garrett takes the fall. Fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. He goes to prison. We go to Grand Cayman. She paused. Simple. I pressed my hands flat against the workbench. My daughter had planned this with the precision of an architect designing a building. Every load-bearing wall, every support beam, every emergency exit. And Garrett, the professional con artist, was nothing but scaffolding. Useful during construction. Discarded when the building was complete. But then Dominic said something that changed everything. You know, he said, pulling Meredith closer. When you first came to me 4 years ago, I thought you were crazy. A daughter wanting to rob her own father. But I have to hand it to you, babe. You had the vision from the start. 4 years. The words detonated inside my chest like a bomb. 4 years ago was 2020. Elaine was still alive. Still healthy. Still sharp. Meredith had not yet met Garrett. Had not yet married him. Had not yet moved into my house. 4 years ago, my daughter had walked into Dominic Ashworth's gallery in Manhattan and proposed this. All of it. The marriage to a con artist as a tool. The pills. The cameras. The psychiatric commitment. The theft of everything I owned. She had designed the entire conspiracy before her mother was even sick. Meredith laughed softly. I was drowning in debt, she said. Student loans, credit cards, bad investments. And there was Dad, sitting on $6 million, spending his days playing with glass. She shrugged. I just decided to stop waiting for the inheritance. Playing with glass. 44 years of mastery. 44 years of art and craft and devotion reduced to playing with glass. Dominic nodded. And the husband? Garrett? I found him online, Meredith said casually. A forum for people looking for certain kinds of services. He had done this twice before. I needed someone to be the face of the operation. Someone whose name would be on everything. Someone disposable. She had recruited Garrett. Chosen him specifically. Married him. As part of the plan. Every kiss. Every shared meal. Every moment of their marriage had been calculated. Strategic. A means to an end. And what happens to him after? Dominic asked. When the money is gone and he realizes he has been set up. Meredith was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. Her voice flat. Matter of fact, accidents happen. People have health problems. Car trouble on mountain roads at night. She looked at Dominic. Clean. Simple. No loose ends. I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking. Not from the drugs, not from age. From the weight of what I had just heard. My daughter was not only planning to steal from me and imprison me, she was planning to kill Garrett. To murder the man she had married specifically to take the blame for her crimes. I sat in the studio, surrounded by colored glass and the smell of flux, and tried to breathe. 4 years. This had been growing inside my daughter for 4 years. Like a crack in a pane of glass that starts invisible and spreads slowly through the structure until the whole thing shatters. And Elaine had seen it. That was why she built the camera. Not because she suspected Garrett, a man Meredith had not yet met, but because she suspected Meredith herself. She had watched her daughter change, watched the greed grow, watched something dark take root behind those familiar eyes. And even as her own mind was failing, even as the Alzheimer stole her memories one by one, Elaine had held on to that knowledge long enough to act. To build a guardian. To leave me a weapon hidden in the eyes of an angel. I picked up Owen's phone and typed, got everything. Dominic Ashworth is the real mastermind. Meredith planned this 4 years ago. She is going to frame Garrett and kill him after. Recording saved. Cloud uploaded. Owen's reply came in seconds. Do not move. Do not change anything. I am accelerating the timeline. This changes everything. Dad. Hold on. I set the phone down and looked at the guardian angel through the studio doorway. Those sapphire eyes, glinting faintly in the afternoon light. You knew, Elaine. From the very beginning. You watched our daughter become this thing, and you could not stop it. So you did the only thing you could. You built me a way to survive her. I had the evidence I needed to save myself, but something nagged at me. A question that would not let go. If Garrett had done this twice before, if Dominic had connections to an underground network, if Dr. Harmon signed commitment papers for $60,000, then I was not the first. And I would not be the last. The next morning, while Meredith and Garrett believed I was napping in my bedroom, I sat in the studio with my laptop connected to Owen's secure hotspot. I typed the name into the search bar. Crestview Behavioral Institute. The website loaded. Glossy. Professional. A photograph of a modern building surrounded by sculpted gardens and old-growth oaks. The tagline read, "Where Healing Begins. Compassionate care for cognitive and behavioral wellness." There were testimonials from grateful families. An awards section boasting recognition from 3 different healthcare organizations. A virtual tour showing sunlit common rooms, private suites with garden views, smiling nurses in pressed uniforms. It looked like a luxury resort. The kind of place where wealthy families sent their aging parents to be comfortable in their final years. I dug deeper. Crestview Behavioral Institute complaints. Crestview Behavioral Institute lawsuit. Crestview Behavioral Institute wrongful confinement. The results were buried beneath layers of optimized content. But they were there. Pushed to the 3rd and 4th pages of search results. Hidden but not erased. 3 civil lawsuits in 5 years. All settled out of court. All sealed with non-disclosure agreements. The details were sparse. Just legal filing summaries and brief mentions in local news archives. But the pattern was unmistakable. Allegations of wrongful confinement, financial exploitation, medication, without consent. One article caught my attention. A small piece from the Asheville Citizen-Times, published 3 years ago. The headline read, "Family demands investigation after mother dies at area facility." The article was short. A man named Thomas Harding, age 57 at the time of publication, alleged that his mother, Eleanor Harding, had been wrongfully committed to Crestview and had died there 6 months later. The case had been settled quietly. No criminal charges filed. I searched Thomas Harding's name, found a Facebook profile, a community advocacy page he ran called Families Against Institutional Abuse. His most recent post was from 2 months ago. Still fighting. Still talking. Still angry. I found his phone number through the advocacy page and dialed from Owen's backup phone. He answered on the 4th ring. "Hello." His voice was guarded. Tired. "Mr. Harding. My name is Franklin Myers. I think my family is trying to commit me to Crestview Behavioral Institute. I saw your mother's case online." A long silence. Then a sound that might have been a bitter laugh or a choked sob. "Crestview," he said. "God." His voice dropped. "Mr. Myers, my mother was 68 years old. Sharp as a tack. Could beat me at chess until the day they put her in that place. My sister and her husband convinced a judge that Mom was a danger to herself. Got a doctor to sign off on it." "Dr. Harmon?" I asked. Thomas went quiet. Then, "How do you know that name? He is the one they are planning to use on me." Thomas exhaled hard. "Victor Harmon. He is their gatekeeper. Signs anything they put in front of him. My mother walked into Crestview with $2.3 million in assets. Her house, her savings, her investments. 6 months later, she was dead. And there was nothing left. They drugged her so heavily she did not recognize her own son. And every week, another document appeared with her signature on it. Sales, transfers, authorizations, all signed while she was too sedated to know her own name. I gripped the phone. How did she die? Heart failure. Thomas's voice cracked. But I know it was the drugs. The cocktail they had her on would have killed a horse. And no one cared. No one investigated. Because the paperwork all looked legal. If I build a case, I said, if I can get them in front of a judge, will you testify? Yes. No hesitation. I have been waiting 3 years for someone to give me that chance. I found Sylvia Odom that same afternoon. Her name appeared in a blog post from 18 months ago. Woman escapes behavioral facility, alleges financial abuse. The post detailed how Sylvia, 73, had been committed to Crestview by her grandson. 5 months inside. $1.6 million gone. Released only because a sympathetic nurse had helped her contact a lawyer. I called her. Her voice was thin, fragile. But when I explained why I was calling, it hardened into something fierce. They made me sign papers while I was so drugged I thought I was signing birthday cards, she said. I could not read, could not think, could not remember where I was. They told me I was sick, told me I was confused. And every time I tried to argue, they gave me another pill. How did you get out? A nurse named Jennifer. She saw what was happening. Helped me call a legal aid number. The lawyer filed an emergency petition. Took 4 months, but they had to let me go. And your money? Gone. Her voice was barely audible. All of it. I live on Social Security now. A 1-bedroom apartment. I had a house, Mr. Myers. I had a life. They took everything. Will you testify? I asked. If you can get them into a courtroom, I will crawl there if I have to. I hung up and sat in the silence of my studio. The mountain light poured through the skylight, casting colored shadows on the workbench from the glass panels leaning against the walls. Beautiful. Peaceful. The world above my head did not know about the ugliness happening below. Thomas Harding. Eleanor Harding. Dead. 2.3 million. Sylvia Odom. 5 months imprisoned. 1.6 million. Franklin Myers. 6 months poisoned. 6.1 million at stake. 3 families. Nearly $10 million. And those were just the ones I had found in a single afternoon of searching. How many others were trapped inside Crestview right now? How many were drugged into silence, signing away their lives without knowing, while their families collected checks and planned vacations? This was not just about me. This was not just about my daughter, or my money, or my house on Ridgecrest Lane. This was a machine, a system designed to consume the elderly, the vulnerable, the isolated. It fed on trust. It fed on family. It fed on the assumption that old people were disposable, that our memories were unreliable, that our voices did not matter. I thought about my glass work. 44 years of taking broken things and making them whole again, rebuilding what others had discarded, finding beauty in fragments. But some things should not be restored. Some things should be burned to the ground. And Crestview Behavioral Institute was one of them. Wednesday night. 9:32. The tablet lit up on my workbench. Motion detected. I pressed the earbuds in and watched the feed. Meredith and Garrett settling onto the sofa below. But something was different tonight. No drinks, no relaxed postures. Meredith sat on the edge of the cushion, her spine rigid. Garrett leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We need to move faster, Meredith said. Her voice was clipped, tight. None of the casual cruelty from previous nights. This was fear. Garrett frowned. The evaluation is next Friday. Harmon is confirmed. Why rush? The pastor, Meredith said. James Whitmore. He came back today while you were out. I saw him at the back door. Talking to Dad. Garrett's expression darkened. I told that man to stay away. Telling him is not enough. Meredith stood up and paced toward the window. He is a former police officer, Garrett. He knows what to look for. And he has been watching us. I can feel it. If he talks to the wrong person, if he files a report, if he contacts Owen directly, this whole thing falls apart. Garrett rubbed his temples. So what do you want to do? Saturday morning, Meredith said. She turned to face him, her expression hard. We move Saturday morning, 4 a.m. Before Dad wakes up, before anyone on this street is looking out their windows. That is 3 days early, Garrett said. Can Harmon have the papers ready? Meredith picked up her phone. Harmon will do what I tell him. He owes us. I will call him tomorrow, have him backdate the evaluation to last week. The commitment papers will be ready by Friday night. Garrett was quiet for a moment. And if your father resists, he will not resist if he is asleep. Meredith's voice was ice. The ambulance arrives at 4. 2 attendants. They sedate him in bed. He wakes up at Crestview. Done. Then she added something that made my blood freeze. But we need a backup story. In case anyone asks questions. She paused. I am going to give myself a bruise. Right here. She touched her left cheekbone. And a scratch on my arm. Saturday morning. When the ambulance is here, I tell them Dad attacked me. That he has become violent. Aggressive. A danger to others. Emergency commitment. No waiting period. No second opinion needed. Garrett nodded slowly. That could work. Harmon will corroborate. It will work, Meredith said. She sat back down, her confidence returning. By Saturday noon, Dad is at Crestview. By Monday, the transfers begin. By next Friday, Dominic and I are on a plane. I stopped the recording and sat in the darkness, my pulse hammering. Saturday. 4 in the morning, 3 days from now. Owen had said he needed 10 days. He had been working to accelerate, but 10 days was 10 days. Warrants took time. Legal proceedings took time. The machinery of justice moved slowly, carefully, deliberately. But my daughter was not waiting for justice. She was moving now. I pulled out Owen's phone and typed quickly. They moved it up. Saturday, 4 a.m. Ambulance. Fake attack story. Emergency commitment. No evaluation needed. She is going to bruise herself and say I hit her. Owen's reply came in 90 seconds. I know. I heard it. Cameras are uploading in real time. Dad, I am pushing everything forward. I have contacts at the local FBI field office. Agent Sarah Chen is working the warrant now. I will be there Friday night. Latest 3 a.m. Saturday. You need to hold on until then. 3 a.m. Saturday. 1 hour before the ambulance was scheduled. 1 hour of margin. If everything went perfectly, and if it does not? I typed. Then you go to the church. Pastor Whitmore's key. You lock the door, and you call 911. Do not let them put you in that ambulance. Once you are inside Crestview, I cannot help you. I set the phone down. My hands were steady. Not because I was not afraid. I was terrified. But terror has a way of focusing the mind, of burning away everything that does not matter, until only the essential remains. I had 3 days. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to make sure that no matter what happened Saturday morning, the evidence survived. Thursday morning, I began. First, the recordings. I downloaded every file from the cloud server onto 3 USB drives. Hours of footage. Meredith and Garrett's confession. Dominic's visit. The kiss. The Grand Cayman plan. The murder plot against Garrett. Wednesday night's timeline acceleration. All of it. Compressed. Encrypted. Saved. 1 USB I hid in the paint supply box in my studio. Behind the brushes. Beneath the rags. Where Owen's backup phone had lived for months. The The second I sealed in an envelope and tucked into the inner pocket of my winter coat. The heavy wool one hanging in my closet. The one no one had touched since March. The third was for Pastor Whitmore. I waited until Thursday evening. Meredith brought my pill at 8:30. I performed the ritual. Tongue. Water. Smile. Good night, Dad. I disposed of the pill and went to my room. Lay in bed with the lights off until the house went silent. At 2 in the morning, I moved. Down the attic stairs. Through the hallway, avoiding the camera's blind spots I had memorized over weeks. Down the back staircase to the kitchen. Out the rear door, easing it closed with both hands so the latch would not click. The night air hit me like cold water. Sharp. Clean. The Blue Ridge sky was dense with stars. I walked 2 blocks in my slippers, the pavement cold beneath my feet, the envelope pressed against my chest. Pastor Whitmore's porch light was off, but his door opened within 30 seconds of my knock. He stood there in a flannel robe, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, eyes instantly alert. "Franklin, what is wrong?" "Saturday morning," I said. 4 a.m. They are coming for me with an ambulance. If anything goes wrong, if I disappear, give this to my son Owen. He pressed a card into my hand months ago with his direct number. James took the envelope, held it firmly, looked me in the eyes. "You are not going to disappear, Franklin. I will be awake Saturday morning, 3 a.m. I will be watching your house. And if I see anything, I am calling the police myself." "Thank you, James." He gripped my shoulder. "God is watching over you, Franklin. And so am I. Now get home before they notice. You are gone." I walked back through the dark streets. The mountains were black silhouettes against the star-filled sky. 2 days, 48 hours. Owen would come. The evidence would hold. The angel was watching. But as I slipped back through the kitchen door and climbed the stairs to my studio, I could not shake the cold knot in my stomach. Plans fail. Timelines slip. Cars break down. Warrants get delayed. If Owen was late, even by 1 hour, I would be inside Crestview before dawn. And no one would ever hear from me again. Friday morning, 9:15. The doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen, performing the shuffle. Coffee mug in hand, eyes unfocused, shoulders rounded. The cameras recorded a confused old man moving through his morning routine. I had become very good at this performance. 6 days of practice. Every gesture calibrated. Every word carefully slurred just enough to be convincing. I heard Meredith's heels on the hardwood. The front door opening. Her voice, bright and welcoming. "Dr. Harmon, thank you so much for coming on short notice. Please, come in. Dad is in the kitchen." I set my mug down and shuffled toward the living room. Meredith met me in the hallway, her hand on my elbow, guiding me like an invalid. "Dad, Dr. Harmon is here to help you. Just answer his questions honestly. Okay?" I blinked at her. Let my mouth open slightly. "Okay," I mumbled. The man waiting in my living room was tall and lean, mid-50s, with silver-rimmed glasses and a gray suit that hung well on his frame. He carried a leather briefcase that he set on the coffee table with practiced ease. His smile was warm, professional, the kind of smile that put nervous patients at ease. But his eyes told a different story. They were calculating, sweeping, assessing me the way a butcher assesses a carcass. Not with concern, with measurement. Dr. Victor Harmon. The man Thomas Harding had warned me about. The man who had signed Eleanor Harding into Crestview. The man who had rubber-stamped Sylvia Odom's imprisonment. The gatekeeper. And he was sitting directly beneath the guardian angel. Those sapphire eyes looking down at the back of his head. Recording everything. The irony was so sharp I almost smiled. Almost. "Mr. Myers," Harmon said, gesturing for me to sit in the armchair across from him. "How are you feeling today?" I lowered myself into the chair, letting my movements be slow and uncertain. Fine, I said. I think I am fine. Your daughter tells me you have been having some difficulties lately. Confusion. Seeing things that are not there. Memory problems. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a clipboard. Let us just go through a few simple questions, all right? I nodded. All right. He clicked his pen. What year is it? I paused. Let my brow furrow as if working hard to retrieve the information. 24, I said. Good. And who is the current president? I hesitated again. The performance of a man digging through mud for answers. Donald Trump, I said. Harmon made a note. What day of the week is it? Friday, I said. Then added, with just a touch of uncertainty, I think. Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? I let a moment pass. Frowned. Then began. 100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65. I delivered each number clearly, precisely, without hesitation, because I wanted him to know. I wanted the camera to capture the moment when a perfectly lucid man was declared insane by a doctor who had already cashed his check. Harmon's pen stopped moving. He looked up at me. For just an instant, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe a flash of doubt. He had expected confusion, slurred speech, wrong answers. The drugged, compliant patient Meredith had described. Instead, he got a 68-year-old man who could count backward by sevens without breaking a sweat. But doubt lasted only a moment. Then it was gone, replaced by the smooth, professional mask. He wrote something on his clipboard and moved on. Do you ever feel like people are watching you, Mr. Myers? I looked at him, at the cameras mounted in the corners of my own living room, at the angel's eyes above his head. Sometimes, I said, do you hear voices? See things others cannot see? I let my gaze drift toward the guardian angel, toward those sapphire eyes that glowed faintly in the morning light. Sometimes I hear my wife, I said softly. But she has been dead 9 months. Harmon wrote quickly, underlined something. Auditory and visual hallucinations, he murmured, loud enough for the microphone to catch. Meredith hovered behind me, her hand on the back of my chair, her presence a constant reminder, a warning. Dad has been getting worse, she said. He wanders at night, talks to people who are not there. Last week he did not recognize me for almost an hour. Lies. All lies. But Harmon nodded and wrote them down as if they were gospel. The evaluation continued for another 10 minutes. Each question designed to build a narrative of decline. Each answer I gave twisted, reframed, or simply ignored in favor of the diagnosis he had already written before walking through my door. When he finished, Harmon stood and shook my hand. His grip was firm, his smile unchanged. Thank you, Mr. Myers. You have been very cooperative. He followed Meredith and Garrett into the kitchen. I stayed in the living room, sitting beneath the angel, and listened to their voices drifting through the doorway. Clear signs of progressive cognitive decline, Harmon said. His voice was clinical, detached, as if reading from a textbook rather than condemning a living person. Paranoid ideation, auditory and visual hallucinations, inability to maintain consistent orientation. He pauses. In my professional opinion, he presents a danger to himself and potentially to others. I recommend immediate institutional intervention, Garrett spoke. So the commitment papers? Already prepared. Harmon's briefcase clicked open, backdated to last week. As requested, he can be admitted at any time. The sound of paper sliding across the counter. Harmon's pen scratching his signature. Then the sound I had been waiting for. The sound that would seal their fate. Garrett's voice. Low and casual. Your fee. As agreed. A brief silence. The soft whisper of an envelope changing hands. Then Harmon's reply, smooth and satisfied. Always a pleasure doing business. $60,000. In cash. Handed over in my kitchen. 4 feet from where I sat. 12 feet below the eyes of the angel that was recording every second. Meredith's voice came last. Tomorrow morning. 4 a.m. The ambulance arrives. We want him sedated before he wakes. Less traumatic that way. Harmon agreed. Made a suggestion about dosage. Discussed logistics as if they were planning a catering event rather than a kidnapping. I sat perfectly still in my armchair, eyes on the guardian angel. On those sapphire eyes that burned with a quiet, steady light. You got all of that, Elaine. I thought. Every word. Every dollar. Every lie. Tomorrow. They were coming tomorrow. 14 hours from now. And every single moment of their conspiracy was preserved in the angel's unblinking gaze. I just had to survive one more night. Meredith brought the pill at 8:30. The last one she would ever offer me. Vitamin time, Dad. She smiled. That smile. I had cataloged every variation of it over these 6 months. The concerned smile. The patient smile. The pitying smile. Tonight's was different. Tonight's had an edge of finality. A farewell hidden in the curve of her lips. She knew this was the last night. Tomorrow, I would be someone else's problem. I took the pill. Tongue. Water. Swallow. Nothing. Good night, Dad. Sleep well. She closed the door. And I began to wait. 10 o'clock. The house settled into silence. Television off. Footsteps. Retreating. Their bedroom door closing. I lay in bed. Fully clothed beneath the blankets. Shoes on. Eyes open in the dark. Watching the ceiling. Counting heartbeats. 11 o'clock. Nothing. The house breathed around me. Old wood settling. The furnace cycling on and off. Wind. Moving through the oaks outside my window. Midnight. I rose. Moved silently to the studio. Checked the tablet. Guardian Angel cameras active. Cloud uploading normally. Battery at 92%. Everything ready. I sat at my workbench in the dark and looked at the tools of my trade. The glass cutters. The soldering iron. The lead came stretchers. The grozing pliers. 44 years of work represented in these instruments. 44 years of taking broken things and making them whole. Tonight, one way or another, something was going to break. Either my captors or me. 1 o'clock. I checked Owen's phone. No messages. He was en route. Somewhere between Washington and Asheville. Driving through the night with a team assembled. Coming to save me. Or trying to. 2 o'clock. I moved through the house one final time. Not for the cameras. For myself. I walked through the dark hallway. Past the bathroom, where they had mounted a lens to watch me shower. Past the kitchen where Garrett had spread my financial records across the table and smiled. Past the living room where the guardian angel stood, sentinel in the darkness, sapphire eyes catching the faint glow of a streetlight through the curtains. I stopped before her. Looked up at that face I had created with my own hands. The face my wife had designed. The face that held her final gift. Whatever happens tonight, I whispered, thank you. Both of you. Then I climbed back to the studio and sat by the dormer window overlooking the driveway. The street was empty. The mountain darkness absolute. 3 o'clock. My phone buzzed. Owen. Status update. In North Carolina. 1 hour out. Team confirmed. Agent Sarah Chen has the warrant. We are coming, Dad. 1 hour. The ambulance was scheduled for 4. Owen would arrive at approximately 3:45. 15 minutes of margin. Tight, but enough. If nothing changed, 3:15. Another text. Slight delay. Road construction on I-40. New. ETA. 3:55. Still before 4. Do not worry. 3:55. 5 minutes before the ambulance. The margin had shrunk from 15 minutes to 5. My stomach twisted. 5 minutes was nothing. 5 minutes was a traffic light. A wrong turn. A flattire. 3:25. I stood at the window, staring into the dark. The street was empty. The houses on either side were dark. Only Pastor Whitmore's living room showed a faint glow. 2 blocks down. He was awake. Watching. As promised. 3:30. Nothing. 3:35. My hands were shaking. Not from drugs. Not from age. From the pure animal terror of a man waiting to see if he will be free. Or caged. 3:40. Still nothing. Still dark. Still silent. 3:45. Owen's original ETA. He was not here. The street remained empty. 3:47. The phone buzzed. I snatched it up. Owen's name. Dad. His voice was a whisper. Controlled but strained. I am close. 8 minutes out. But listen to me. There is a problem. What problem? The ambulance. It left the dispatch station 12 minutes ago. They moved it up. They are not coming at 4, Dad. They are coming now. My blood went cold. I need you to stay in the studio, Owen continued, his voice rapid. Lock the door. Do not come out. Do not engage. I will be there in 8 minutes. Agent Chen is right behind me. If they try to take you, barricade yourself and call 911. Owen. There is no lock on the studio door. Then push something against it. Anything. 8 minutes, Dad. Just hold on. The line went dead. I stood frozen at the window for 3 seconds. Then I heard it. Tires on gravel. The low rumble of a large vehicle moving slowly up Ridgecrest Lane. No headlights. Just the sound of rubber on stone and the faint squeak of brakes. I pressed my face to the window. A white van materialized out of the darkness. The words Private Medical Transport visible on the side panel in the glow of a distant streetlight. Behind it, a black sedan. Windows tinted. Both vehicles rolled into my driveway and stopped. Engines idling. 3 figures emerged from the van. Dark clothing. Efficient movements. One carried a folded stretcher. Another held a small case that I knew contained syringes. Then the front door of my house opened from the inside. Garrett's silhouette appeared in the doorway. He gestured them forward. No words. Just a quick wave of his hand. Come in. Hurry. They disappeared inside. Below me, I heard the front door close. Heard footsteps on hardwood. Heard Garrett's voice. Low and urgent. Bedroom. 2nd floor. Get him sedated. And on the stretcher. Before he wakes up. We have 10 minutes. Meredith's voice. Cold. Final. Make it fast. I do not want the neighbors to see. I looked at the phone in my hand. 8 minutes. Owen was 8 minutes away, but they were already inside my house. Already climbing my stairs. Already coming for me with needles and restraints, and a one-way ticket to a place where people disappeared. 8 minutes. I looked around my studio. At the glass. The tools. The workbench. The guardian angel's eyes watching through the floor below. Then I heard the footsteps reach the top of the stairs. His voice came first. Low and efficient. The way a man speaks when he believes no one is listening. Get him before he wakes up. Sedate first. Questions later. I stood in the darkness of my studio. 3 feet from the doorway. My hand resting on the workbench where I had shaped glass for 40 years. Through the gap in the door I could see the hallway light flicker as bodies moved past it. 2 men I had never seen before carried a collapsible stretcher between them. They wore white shirts with a medical logo I did not recognize. Behind them walked Garrett, and behind Garrett came my daughter. Meredith had her phone pressed against her thigh, the screen casting a pale rectangle against her jeans. She did not look afraid. She looked like someone running late for a morning flight. The two men turned into my bedroom. I heard the mattress creak as one of them set the stretcher down. Then, silence. The kind of silence that follows when people expect to find something and find nothing instead. "Where is he?" That was Meredith. Her voice was flat, controlled. Not a question. A demand. "Check the bathroom." Garrett again. Then footsteps. The bathroom door banged open. The shower curtain rings scraped along the rod. More silence. "He was here 20 minutes ago." I watched the feed. Meredith's voice was rising now. Just slightly. The way a crack begins in a fired piece of glass. You do not hear it break. You hear the tension change. I counted to 3. Then I pushed open the studio door and stepped into the hallway light. Looking for me. There are moments in life when time fractures. I have seen it happen in my kiln. A sheet of cathedral glass, heated to 1400 degrees, will hold its shape until the exact instant it cannot. Then everything changes at once. The color shifts. The structure gives. The fracture travels faster than the eye can follow. That is what happened in my hallway at 3:50 in the morning. 4 people turned toward me simultaneously. The 2 fake medics froze mid-step, one of them holding a syringe with a yellow cap still on. Garrett's hand went to his belt as if reaching for something that was not there. And Meredith, my daughter, my youngest child, my little girl who used to sit on this very floor and watch me cut glass with a diamond-tip scorer. She looked at me the way a surgeon looks at a complication. "Dad." Her voice shifted instantly. Warm. Concerned. "We were worried about you. You were not in bed. Dr. Harmon said you might wander at night because of the episodes." I let her finish. I let the performance play out for exactly as long as it took me to lift the tablet from behind my back and hold it at chest height. I pressed play. The recording was from 2 nights ago. Dominic's voice filled the hallway first. Saturday at 4 in the morning. The ambulance arrives. Harmon's papers are already backdated. Then Garrett. And the collection. 60,000 to Harmon. And then Meredith. My Meredith. Her voice clear as spring water through cathedral glass. He will not remember any of it. By Tuesday, I will have full conservatorship. The house transfers within 30 days. The tablet played for 19 seconds. That is all it took. 19 seconds of their own voices, in their own words, describing the precise method by which they intended to erase me. I pressed pause. The hallway was silent. One of the fake medics took a step backward. The other looked at Garrett. The way employees look at managers during a fire drill that has become an actual fire. Meredith spoke first. "That is not. You cannot." Her sentences broke apart like solder joints under thermal shock. "Where did you get that?" I looked at her. I wanted to feel anger. Part of me did. But what I mostly felt was the same sensation I feel when a piece I have worked on for months reveals a flaw I cannot repair. A sadness that is also a kind of clarity. "From your mother," I said. "She left me more than you ever knew." That is when I told them. "I have copies. 3 of them. One is in a cloud server your brother built. One is with Pastor James Whitmore at Grace Fellowship Church. And one is with Owen, your brother Owen, who works for the National Security Agency, who has been listening to everything in this house for the past 72 hours. Garrett moved first. He lunged toward me with his right hand open, reaching for the tablet. He was 39 years old, and strong and fast, but I had been standing in one place for 2 hours waiting for this exact moment. I stepped left, into my studio doorway, and his hand caught only the door frame. He stumbled forward and hit the workbench. My soldering iron rolled off the edge and clattered to the floor. And then Meredith did what Meredith has always done. She survived. She turned on Garrett. "Do not touch him. Do not touch anything. This was your plan, you and Dominic. I told you he was too smart for this. She was already restructuring the narrative, already building a version of events in which she was the victim, the reluctant participant, the daughter who was coerced. I watched her do it. I watched 40 years of love and 18 years of raising her and 9 months of grief collapse into a single calculation behind her eyes. She chose herself. She chose herself the way she had chosen herself when she first sat in Dominic Ashworth's gallery 4 years ago and agreed to sell her own father for a percentage of $6.1 million. She was still talking when the sound came from below. A door. Then boots. Not 2 pairs. Many pairs. Freeze. Federal agents. Do not move. Hands where we can see them. The voice came from the bottom of the staircase. Then from the hallway. Then from outside the windows, where red and blue light suddenly pulsed through every piece of glass in my home. The colors scattered across the walls the way light moves through a kaleidoscope. Red on the white plaster. Blue on the hardwood. Red. Blue. Red. The 2 fake medics dropped to their knees immediately. Garrett pressed his back against the studio wall and raised his hands. Meredith stood perfectly still, her face blank, calculating even now. And then Owen appeared at the top of the stairs. My son, 38 years old, tall like his mother, wearing a dark jacket with 3 letters on the chest that caught the hallway light. He had his badge in his left hand, held high. Behind him, 2 agents in tactical gear. Behind them, 2 more. Owen looked at me. I looked at him. For a moment, the world held still. Then he said the only thing that mattered. We got it all, Dad. Every word. I nodded. I set the tablet down on my workbench, next to the soldering iron on the floor, and the diamond scorer, and the colored glass, and the guardian angel, whose sapphire eyes had seen everything. I leaned against the doorframe because my legs were shaking, not from fear, not from the pills that were no longer in my blood, from relief. The kind of relief that does not feel like joy. It feels like setting down something impossibly heavy that you have carried for so long you forgot what your body felt like without it. Owen crossed the hallway and put his hand on my shoulder. His grip was firm, real, warm. It is over, he said. But it was not over. Not yet. Because Dominic Ashworth was still in New York. And Crestview Behavioral Institute was still open. And somewhere in that building, other people's parents were disappearing into pharmaceutical fog while their children signed papers and collected checks. It was not over. But for the first time in 9 weeks, I could breathe. They arrested Dominic Ashworth 46 hours later in his gallery on West 27th Street in Manhattan. Owen told me the details afterward. Dominic was hosting a private showing. Champagne. Collectors. A string quartet in the corner. When the agents came through the front door, he was mid-sentence, describing a piece of sculpture to a woman in a black dress. He did not run. He smiled, as if the whole thing were an inconvenience he could resolve with a phone call. That smile disappeared when they read the charges. Racketeering. Conspiracy to commit elder fraud. Wire fraud. Across 6 states. Attempted unlawful imprisonment, and 1 count that would keep him awake at night for years to come. Conspiracy to commit murder in the 1st degree. The Crestview raid happened the same morning. Federal agents and state police entered the facility at 6:15. They found 11 patients on the 3rd floor who had no legitimate reason to be there. 11 people whose families had been told they were confused, dangerous, incapable of managing their own lives. 3 of them had been inside for over a year. 1 woman, 71 years old, did not know that her house had been sold 8 months prior. She thought she was in a hospital recovering from a fall. Thomas Harding's mother was not among the living. She had died at Crestview 14 months before I ever heard the name. But Thomas sat in the courtroom every single day of the trial. Front row. He never spoke to reporters. He never looked away. Sylvia Odom testified on the 9th day. 73 years old. Voice, steady as iron. She described how her own nephew had worked with Dominic's network to have her committed, how Dr. Victor Harmon had signed papers declaring her mentally unfit after a 12-minute evaluation, how she lost $1.6 million before a hospital nurse grew suspicious and contacted Adult Protective Services. When the prosecutor asked if she could identify Harmon in the courtroom, Sylvia pointed without hesitation and said, "That man stole my life for 13 months. The sentences came down on a Thursday in October. I remember because the maples along the courthouse drive were turning gold and red, and the morning light through the courtroom windows reminded me of something Elaine would have loved. Dominic Ashworth. 22 years federal. No parole eligibility for 14. Dr. Victor Harmon. 18 years. Medical license revoked permanently. 3 counts of false imprisonment. 5 counts of medical fraud. Garrett Simmons. His real name. Not Tate. 25 years. 3rd strike. He will be 74 when he is eligible for release. And Meredith. My daughter received 12 years. Conspiracy. Elder financial abuse. Attempted unlawful commitment. Her lawyer argued coercion. The jury did not believe it. Neither did I. I had watched her on that recording. Calm and precise. Dividing my life into dollar amounts with the efficiency of a woman who had practiced the arithmetic many times before. People ask me if I forgave her. I will tell you what I tell them. Forgiveness is not a door you walk through once. It is a window you build slowly, piece by piece. The way I build my glass. Some days the light comes through. Some days it does not. I am 68 years old. I do not have enough time left to spend it carrying hatred. But I also do not have enough dishonesty left to call what she did forgivable. So I live in the space between. I think most people do if they are honest about it. Owen visits every 3rd weekend now. He drives down from Virginia with his wife and their boy, who is 4, and already fascinated by the colors in my studio. He picks up pieces of scrap glass from the bin and holds them to the light and says, "Grandpa, this one is the ocean. This one is a fire truck." I let him keep them. I am building him a small panel for his bedroom window. A ship on blue water. Simple, bright. The kind of thing that makes a child feel that the world is full of color. Pastor James still comes by on Tuesdays. We drink coffee. Sometimes we talk about what happened. Mostly we do not. He tells me about his congregation. I tell him about whatever piece I am working on. There is comfort in ordinary conversation. I did not appreciate that before. The house is quieter now. I removed the 7 cameras Garrett installed. I patched the holes in the walls. I refinished the floors where the stretcher had scraped the wood that night. But I left one thing exactly where it is. The guardian angel hangs in my studio window. Elaine's last piece. 43 pieces of hand-cut glass. Wings of amber and gold. A face of pale rose. And 2 sapphire eyes that still watch the room. The cameras are no longer recording. Owen removed the hardware months ago. But I keep the eyes in place, because they remind me of something I never want to forget. That my wife knew. She knew before the disease took her words, before the fog took her memory, before death took her body. She knew what was coming for me, and she built her protection into something beautiful, something permanent, something made of light. I work every day now. 5, sometimes 6 hours in the studio. I have more commissions than I can fill. The trial brought attention I never wanted, but it also brought people to my door who understood what stained glass means. It means taking broken things and making them whole through light. It means that fractures do not have to be the end. They can be where the brightness enters. Elaine taught me that. Not with words. With glass. It is evening as I finish telling you this. The sun is going down behind the Blue Ridge, and the light is coming through the guardian angel at that low angle that turns my entire studio into color. Gold on the workbench. Rose on the floor, sapphire across my hands. I stand in it the way I stood in it when Elaine was alive and working beside me. I let it hold me. If this story meant something to you, I am glad. If you know someone who is alone and elderly and trusting and loved by people who do not deserve that trust, watch over them. Be their Owen. Be their Pastor James. Be the eyes in the glass. The light is fading now, but it will come back tomorrow. It always does.